On September 26, 1983, the world almost ended. Not with an explosion, not with a speech, not with a declaration of war, but with a blinking red screen inside a Soviet bunker. The system said the United States had launched nuclear missiles. Protocol was clear: report the attack, confirm retaliation, begin World War III. One man had minutes to decide, and he chose to do nothing. It was just after midnight near Moscow. Inside a top-secret Soviet early warning facility, Lieutenant Colonel Stanislav Petrov was on duty. His job was simple. If the system detected incoming American missiles, he was to report it immediately up the chain of command. From there, the decision would move fast, very fast. The Soviet Union and the United States were deep in the Cold War. Trust was non-existent. Tensions were high. Just weeks earlier, the Soviets had shot down a Korean passenger jet by mistake. Hundreds of civilians were dead. The world was already on edge, and then it happened. A siren began to scream. On the screen in front of Petrov, one word flashed: launch. An American intercontinental ballistic missile had been detected. Moments later, the system updated. Not one missile. Five nuclear missiles heading toward the Soviet Union. The Soviet early warning system was new, highly advanced, and supposedly reliable. Petrov had been trained for this moment. If the system confirmed an American launch, he had to report it immediately. There was no time for hesitation. A nuclear missile launched from the United States would reach Soviet soil in roughly 25 minutes, which meant Moscow would have less than 15 minutes to decide whether to retaliate. Retaliation would not mean a limited strike. It would mean full nuclear exchange. Thousands of warheads, millions dead within hours. The doctrine was called mutually assured destruction, and it worked because both sides believed the other would always respond. Petrov stared at the screen. 5 missiles. That was strange. If the United States were launching a first strike, would they really send only 5? It didn't make sense. A real attack would likely involve hundreds. But the computer was confident. The warning level escalated. The screen now read, "Missile strike confirmed." His heart was racing. The bunker was silent except for the alarm. His officers looked at him, waiting. Protocol demanded action, but something felt wrong. Petrov later said, "I had a funny feeling in my gut." The satellites were reporting the launch, but the ground radar systems had not yet confirmed it. There was a gap, a small window of uncertainty. He had minutes to choose: trust the machine or trust his instinct. If he reported the strike, the information would move up the chain. Military leadership would wake the Kremlin. The response would begin. And once launched, there would be no recalling Soviet missiles, no undoing it, no second chance. The weight of the world rested on a single judgment call. Petrov made his decision. He picked up the phone and reported it as a system malfunction, not an attack, a malfunction. He was breaking protocol. If he was wrong, if American missiles were actually inbound, he would be responsible for the destruction of his country and possibly the world. Then they waited. Minutes passed. No explosions. No radar confirmation. No impact. The satellites had been fooled by sunlight reflecting off high-altitude clouds. There had been no attack, no missiles, no war. You would expect a hero's welcome, medals, public recognition, global gratitude. Instead, the incident was classified. Petrov was quietly reassigned. The Soviet military did not want to admit its system had failed. For years, the world didn't know how close it had come. Petrov himself downplayed his role. He said he was simply doing his job. But history suggests otherwise, because if he had followed protocol, the chain reaction might have been unstoppable. The Cold War continued. The Berlin Wall still stood. Nuclear arsenals remained on hair-trigger alert. But something had changed. The world had survived not because of technology, not because of strategy, not because of doctrine, but because one man hesitated, because one man chose doubt over automation. In an era defined by machines and missiles, human judgment made the difference. Stanislav Petrov died in 2017. For decades, few knew his name. But on September 26, 1983, the fate of humanity may have rested on one quiet act of defiance. History often celebrates leaders, presidents, generals, architects of policy. But sometimes, the most important decision is the one not made. And the man who refused to start the World War III may have saved us all.